Senator Whitaker is here with her brilliant smile. I love the pink. I didn't get the memo. Everybody's wearing pink today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? And good morning to you, to Anna, to your co-host, everyone, and more to all the listeners. It's always a pleasure to be here. I know it's been some time.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot has happened since then, but I also want to thank you for always, using this as a platform for us as candidates. It's an honor to be here, and I just want to thank you for this opportunity.
All right. Now, what has happened? A lot has happened. A lot is happening right now in the Senate. Y'all picking up some steam just before the end.
Well, I want to. I mean, one of the things I want to say, I've always, from the very beginning, I jumped right in. I just jumped right in. I chairman of the committee on education workforce development. So that really meant as soon as I, was sworn in, just jumping right in to address our schools, maintenance issues, just overall getting ready for schools. I also serve as the vice chairwoman of the committee that deals with housing, transportation, telecommunications, fielding every area, every facet. So for me, it's just been a very steady journey. So as I'm coming into this election year, just continue to move forward. It's very consistent with my activities around constituents, around legislation, around just overall work as a senator.
Okay. All right. Well, you got a lot of responsibility for a freshman senator. No?
Yes. I'm also the secretary and liaison to Department of Secretary. So already positions, and which I take very seriously.
All right. So now, easier or harder than you thought it would have been?
No, I don't. For a person who was a former legislative staffer, from getting that perspective in the 27th legislature, it gave me some insights. What I just, one thing you don't anticipate is you don't know how much collaboration you're going to get. So one of the learning lessons is really about just the keys of collaboration and the hope that we could, I could get additional colleagues that will support key measures. When you're a change agent and you're trying to offer legislation that's going to be groundbreaking and transformative, you don't always get the support for the long-term vision that I have on all of our issues.
Okay. All right. Now, let's get to it. You want to do it again, right?
Yes. Yes, I'm really asking for your support and reform the ballot.
All right. Now, what motivated you to run the first time, and what's motivating you to run again?
Great question. From very young, just being a person who was very interested in serving others, just from very young. And for me, doing this again is that to continue the work. There's still more work left to be done around various areas that I'm pushing around youth development, education, economic development, healthcare, and I just want to continue the mission of my people.
All right. How did you feel you did in your first term?
Proud of the accomplishments of being able to balance, having, fielding over 300 constituent intakes, over 300 meetings. I chief sponsor for pieces of legislation covering every facet, every area that I said I would set out to address: healthcare reform, economic development, education. I'm really proud of that, and especially just proud of overall just the work and just working. I'm very passionate about my constituents, and so a lot of constituent works that my staff and I have fielded fuels a lot of the things that continuously encourage me to work.
All right. Okay, so I was going to ask you what's your most significant accomplishment of all that you just mentioned. Which is the most significant?
Well, for me, I think it's kind of a little hard to say this in the context, but I'm so passionate about our youth. So I think for me, when I look at legislation, I would really attribute that to what for one, my belief in gender equity. One of the legislation that I did pass was a gender equity bill, which is tied to our development and economics, but also my work to restore our commission on youth, and my work to actually reestablish our youth Senate, along with my youth agriculture project. So for me, a lot of my projects and legislation towards the development of our youth, their skills, their educational skills, as well as a certain push for them to develop their skills.
Okay, that's something that I'm also interested in. So I'm going to ask you, where are we on the reestablishing the Commission on Youth?
Excellent question. With the reestablishment of the Youth Commission in 2012, former Senator Janet Millen Young, she reestablished the commission legislatively in terms of to reestablish it. And since then, no governor has reenacted his or her youth commission. And so what I spent for the last over a year now, working with Governor Bryan and his cabinet to move it forward, which really has meant offering amendments so that we can actually address some of the legislative issues surrounding why it hasn't moved forward. So we're now in the final phase with even the support of Senator Millen Young, as well as the administration, to really move that forward. And then the Youth Senate, which is known as the Legislative Advisory Council, complements that. I'm one of the co-chairs. Senator Salmo Carrion is the chair, along with Senator Janelle Kisaru. And so that is really important. When we look at the development of our community and our society, youth are so important. And until we reestablish our youth infrastructure, we're going to see a lot of the issues we face with crime, as well as just overall support for workforce development and economics.
All right. Now, how do you feel about sports tourism?
Excellent question. Before becoming a senator, I've always supported our pushing for tourism in a way which we attract people, but we also work on the infrastructure, our resources needed, the support for our athletes. All of that has to come by way of us putting a lot more monies into a lot of the organizations that train our athletes and support, and even just overall what's going on in our schools, where you don't see is there's really been a loss of the sports mechanism infrastructure. A lot of, so we have to really restore a lot what's going on in the schools, but also too on the legislative side, there are a number of sports entities, nonprofits that reach out to me, and they struggle often with funding, whether we're talking about, some of our large organizations to our small grassroots sports organizations.
Okay. All right. Now, GRS, always a hot button topic. I know we got some funds, but how can it become self-sustaining?
And that's the question that we have to, what we did in the 34th, in, kind of staving off the earlier, just complete, so to speak, an end to the retirement system, and which also, which if we didn't act in this 34 legislature, you'd have seen a lot of our retirees with really reduced annuity payments. But in order for us to secure this more long-term approach, GRS has to really get into investing, using the properties and lands that they have to really produce revenue-generating initiatives. They have long offered grocery stores and gas stations and also really restoring our ability to tap into to the funds that we put in. So it's going to really require GRS to become a lot more involved and seeking the expertise of marketing companies that, let's say if we went into hotel development, that they would have a selling off of Carambola at a really cheap. Those are really poor investments. So they have to really improve how they're investing and really move forward with a lot of suggested hotel development. I'm huge about us building hotels here in St. Croix, and I believe that's something that GRS can really support, and we'll see great benefits from that.
All right. So you mentioned supermarket. Theoretically, I feel like the profit margin on groceries should be something that could be self-sustaining. Is that a possibility or no?
Well, GRS did once over in St. Thomas. They did, in fact, go invest in a grocery store. But again, if it's not properly marketed and managed, that's where we fall short. So the same thing with Carambola. We could have really transformed Carambola and really have a real management group that would have properly managed the hotel so that it could be really revenue generating and support workforce and things like that.
All right. I don't even know if I need to phrase this in a question. I'm gonna just let you go with this one. Department of Education.
One thing at least I knew what I was up against, and what I'm saying is when you have to, the challenge with the department really is a lot with the leadership and with the power of the Board of Education. I have offered legislation to give the Board of Education more power and to be able to stave off this issue we're facing. Department of Education, we have a myriad of issues. We have decades long of lack of repairing and maintaining the schools, and that's why I even offered legislation for us to be more regimental and restore how we actually used to maintain our schools, as well as address in the interim working with small contractors, supporting that so they can fix the schools. And the biggest thing, Brash, and those listeners is, and everyone, is a lot of times there are contractors who want to do work in our schools, but because we have such a poor payment process in terms of people not getting paid on time and us, the government really depressing so many small businesses through the poor payment processes, some of those individuals are not incentivized to even work in the school. So we have to fix that. And we have to stop this notion of, a port being generating around maintenance. We have to do due diligence, and that's why I've continued to this day to ask for plans on reopening. And I'm not going to stop asking, because I know if we plan better, if we're more strategic, But to the public, it is a responsibility of the Commissioner of Education to maintain the schools, and it's the power that we wield as senators is the budget process. So that's why even before this report came out, school accountability report, I have from last year, the year before becoming a senator, I've been at this school accountability board for a few years now, where I'm saying, okay, so these are the problems in every school. What is the cost? What are the priorities? And how can we fix the big issues and move down to the small ones?
All right, but do you feel that the commissioner had the resources to accomplish some of these goals and objectives?
Absolutely. We are such an amazing time where we are at a time when we, from the disaster, which is it's harder to tap into FEMA
Which
funds.
one?
Well,
Pick a disaster.
but the FEMA funds, we are clear about that. That is harder to tap into, but we're already on that particular track of rebuilding. We're talking about now the COVID funds, which were in fact the main purpose of the COVID funds was to make schools safe during the period, but also to improve the air qualities in our schools. That wasn't done to a holistic level. And then we also add the fact that the Department of Education received and is part of the American Rescue Plan Act. And it was me, Senator Whitaker, that had to do two things. One, we talk about transparency, but the U.S. Department of Education did not even have the approved plan for the Virgin Islands Department of Education on their website and information. The Virgin Islands Department of Education itself didn't have it on theirs. So I worked with both of them to engage over, we're going to put it out and explain to the public, what's the purpose of this money, this $137 million? After school programming, learning loss, addressing all of that, emotional learning. So when I'm asking about the dropout prevention plan, people are like, oh, what does she mean by that? I'm like, what I mean is we have legislation that requires that the Department of Education submit a plan to help stave off learning loss. It's already legislated. We now have to do the work. We have Rash and others. We have individuals who want to help tutor in our schools, help do sports, help do. There's some people in the community that want to help, and the money is there.
So that $137 million is there.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's much easier to tap into than the process we're dealing with FEMA, with which is coming, but it's not. It's a much different. The whole point of rescue plan is it's emergency in many ways, and we have to really retool. So I'm really oftentimes I'm disappointed when we talk about curriculum mandates and and people not coming to my hearing who are stakeholders. We have a real issue. And so but I do want to say that with the new acting Commissioner Soames, it's been a much different relationship, and he's been answering and communicating, and we're going to move education forward in these next few months and get ready for the reopening of schools.
All right. So you mentioned what I seem is a bigger issue, which was paying contractors, not necessarily a Department of Education issue. How can we resolve that greater problem?
So you have it in that department level. You have it. The greater problem is we have an Office of Management and Budget, and that whole budget component of that department has not really been activated, right? And so what we find with the different departments and agencies is that what they're spending, their spending habits, such that when it comes around to paying people for the services they render, they're not able to pay them. And I take great issue with that. I'm working on some legislative initiatives surrounding that. How can we make people whole, or at least assist people in the interim? And what's the issue with payment? I actually specialize in vendor payments. It comes down to work ethics. It comes down to a proper budgeting, and it comes down to us as senators drilling down. If we establish a budget and we gave you as a department budget for X, Y, and Z, and you don't pay people who perform services, we have obligations and we must fulfill them.
All right. Where do you stand on the arts and entertainment?
Thank you. And I just want to first off to all of our artists, continue to and to you, Rashidi, the work you do in support of our artists. I'm actually working with the Economic Development Authority to really re-examine and address the STARS Act, the Sustainable. And I always talk about the acronym all the time, and I myself always have to pull it up. But when we talk about the STARS program, that's the Sustainable Tourism Through Arts-Based Revenue Stream, and that was really set up back in 2015 to really assist with the economic development and context. But Rash and others, it hasn't really benefited our artists the way it should have. And so I am gonna in the coming months I will be announcing. I'm actually gonna really be addressing that legislation. I've already got commitment from the EDA and I've been working with artists, encourage them to apply. So for me, I look forward to the day that our artists, our producers, and the like receive economic development benefits, because that was the tenet of the law, right? We are economic development. When we support our small businesses, drive monies into our small businesses, we're going to see so much growth and development in our community. And I look forward to continuing to assist in that way.
Agreed. All right, now, scattered throughout, you already mentioned the importance of the youth, so I don't need to ask you that specifically. But while I got you here, I'm calling horse races in Tortola on Tuesday. This isn't really a you thing. But where do you stand on horse racing, and when will we have it back?
Wow, Rash, hit the nail on the head. Well, for me, it's, wow. I can definitely tell you that I want it back. And that's why, working with the commission to say, promulgate your rules, but also getting to the bottom of all this. I see just all this confusion, over, the other day when we had this whole effort for the St. Thomas track and was tied to gaming. I'm like, the focus of people, they want racing back. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting, Ration listeners, though, is that I attempted legislatively not to really encourage equine education, because I want to pair that with the industry.
Which is a big industry.
My colleagues rejected that. I'll be very open. So I look forward to continue to push that even throughout this rest of this year, but going even with a humble vote and support, number 4 on the ballot, that, that in fact I get colleagues to understand why we need to have this legislation. But I have been in talks with national leaders on, getting this forward, and I engaged with VIJL, just even beyond the hearings. What is going on? How can you move it forward? So now the ball is in the governor's court to put forward with the plan, but we as legislators have to do much better. I wasn't there then, and I would not have legislated giving an entity such all these items they have to fulfill in order to move it forward. We got to just be more straight shooting, and we have to get away from all these. We have to be better legislating around this issue. So I look forward to the day of racing. I certainly know that you certainly do it, and we're gonna get it going. So for me, just continue. For those who are tuning in, I'll also give my phone number. Just call the office 712-2379. I will be able to give you the facts of what's going on, especially as much as I know, but as much as also what I'm doing as well. So, right. So Rash, we're gonna have racing.
Oh well, I can't wait. Yeah. Jesus. All right, man. I'm so tempted to ask about Paulie Joseph Stadium.
Ask it. I mean, so my hope is that we are just in the final phase of everything, all the issues that the original developments faced, that we're going to move forward with it. I hear different timelines. A lot of times we don't get commitments in terms of when it's going to be restored. But I am also just always doing my due diligence to get to the bottom of issues. We have, so I look forward to that being stood up, but we're really up against a lot of the administration's goals around and their timelines.
Nice. So, well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So, with that being said, a couple of questions that I did not forward to you, but I was just having such a free-flowing conversation. I just figured I'd throw those. It wasn't an ambush. I just wanted to throw it out there. Hey, but definitely, man, thank you so much for being the first brave soul to come through. Senator Whitaker did not hesitate. As soon as we called, she was like, we there. I appreciate that. Please hail up Brother Muhammad for me.
I will.
Dops him up for me, please.
I will.
That's my guy. The floor is yours to conclude and speak to your constituents.
Well, this one again, thank you, Rash. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Thank everyone just for this opportunity. I am Senator Genevieve Whitaker. I am number 4 on the ballot. I'm humbly asking for your vote and support. Vote for number 4 is a people's choice for sure. I want to thank my team, my staff team, my campaign team, all my supporters, those who already came out to early vote. And I just continue to ask again, for me to continue the work. You can also check on Facebook. I'm on 2 Facebook pages. One is Friends and Supporters for Genevieve Whitaker. The other is Senator Genevieve Whitaker. And my website, GenevieveWhitaker.com. So again, just asking for your support and look forward to working with my colleagues as we move the first rounds forward.
All right, well done. Thank you very much. Truly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yep, there's an app for that.
It's called Vivid Streaming, and you can download it in the app and Google Play Store.